Welcome to SADTU Online Television. We are your hosts. I'm Nomusa Cembi, and my co-host is Comrade Paul Komane. The show today is on the month of October. We celebrate the month of October as the Teachers' Month because of two critical events in our education space in South Africa. First, it is the 1st of October, World Teachers' Day, and where the entire globe honors teachers for their wonderful work they do in nurturing the minds of the learners. On the 6th of October in 1990, this giant union, SADTU, was born. It is opportune to reflect on these critical or crucial milestones through the voices of our veterans. We have in our studio today our President, Mahope Mapila, and our General Secretary, Dr. Mokoena Maluleke. My leaders, welcome to SADTU Online Television.
Dumelang.
Tobela. My leaders, first let's start with the World Teachers' Day. On the 5th of October, we celebrated World Teachers' Day, appreciating the central role that teachers play in nurturing the minds of our learners and building the nation. What does this day mean to SADTU as a union in education or a union for education workers? If I may start with you, President.
Well, the World Teachers' Day reminds us that teachers should be celebrated not just in October, but throughout the year, but with the theme recapping on collaborative activities of teachers. It tells you that it's a team game. Together we can do more. So just to appreciate the good work that teachers are doing throughout the world and the country, it's something to write home about, to say their deeds are being recognized, but it shouldn't just be in October. It should be throughout the year. Teaching being the mother of all professions, all of them, they come from these dirty hands. So we really feel honored that UNESCO found it necessary that teachers have to be celebrated the world over on the 5th of October.
To you, General Secretary, do you share the same sentiments?
Yeah.
I'm sure you have more to add on what the day stands for.
No, thanks very much, and greetings, obviously, to our members and those that are also watching the SADTU TV online. And thanks to our president as well for really introducing this particular important topic. From a global perspective, we have celebrated the Teachers' Day, World Teachers' Day, together with UNICEF and UNESCO in Addis Ababa. But we did it on the 3rd of October. And the message was very clear. It is that teachers are architects of the future. That teachers are nation builders, and that teachers really ignite that curiosity in our children. And they are not only teaching, but they are also nurturing the young minds to really prepare themselves for life. So it's not about looking at how many marks a learner has got. It's beyond that, because the impact of a teacher is both in terms of social behavior, but also in terms of how the children regard life and so forth in our schools and so forth. So we celebrated that. But when we're recasting this teaching as a collaborative process, as the president has indicated, we also brought in the element of the relationship between student and the teacher. So teacher-student relationship has been declared recently in the World Summit in Santiago as a global common heritage. So because it's a global common heritage, as a human right issue, it shows that it is across the borders, and it is also across generations to generations. So today, as we celebrate Teachers' Day, we must also remember those who came and passed. the past teachers that were there, as well as the current ones that are still serving, because that is how teaching is. It's a lifelong thing. Despite the fact that we're saying we honor them and we've got to celebrate, does not mean there are no problems. We still have many, many problems that we still have to overcome. You brought the issue of violence in our schools, because education is a societal issue. So a school being a macrocosm of a society, if there's violence in the family, if there's violence in the community, it is bound that we are going to experience that, because kids come from the communities and so forth. So, however, we cannot say we cannot celebrate the teachers, because despite those particular incidents of violence, the teachers have built resilience in many of our children, and they continue to do that. They continue to say to the same children who are bringing violence in this, they continue to tell them how much they love them. They continue to tell them how much they can change, and if they just change their behavior and the way they are living, that they can make it. They can be very important people in life. So they never get tired as teachers. They continuously have this hope. Of course, we've got to address those type of things in terms of violence. We must continue to ensure that our schools are safe. To do that, we need to also make sure that there are enough teachers at the level of the school. Because if there are not enough teachers at the level of school, it may be one of those problems that call inner discipline in the classes, because the teachers get overwhelmed, and burdened by dealing with social problems that are there, but also deal with administrative matters that really are now undermining the teaching. When we said the teachers must teach as a SADTU Friday, we meant that the teachers must concentrate more on the teaching. Or else we know teachers are multi-talented. They do everything they can do, but don't take away that which they love, which is about teaching the children. We have to increase the assistance in our schools so that they help to lessen the burden of administration from our teachers, so that the teachers can do. It's another way of reducing the violence, because when students are kept attentive, kept busy, and offered, good lessons, because teachers are not tired, they are bound to also enjoy the teaching and so forth. That's one other way that we need to address that. I must also indicate we need to improve grade R conditions, because they might also be responsible for, not because we're not giving them proper, working conditions at grade R, and then we have got some overcrowding again in grade R, which is not supposed to happen, because we're building a foundation there. So we might be missing certain life skills that we're supposed to give to our children, and we end up having the children that are lacking with certain skills, and then because of that, they want more attention. As they want more attention, they become aggressive and so forth. So we need to address that. And I can say that at the level of the ELRC, we have now signed a collective agreement that is going to take care of the grade R teachers. One, they are going to be upgrading their qualification, and the government is going to pay for that, because we need to address this issue of qualification and underqualification that has been, visiting us from time to time. So that in itself is to improve the quality of education at the level of the foundation, which is grade R, so that we also improve the possibilities of this particular student gaining as they go there. That to me is very, very critical. And remember, there is no collective agreement in the ELRC with South SADTU. Let the members of SADTU know. Let the teachers know that you can have many proposals and everything in the LRC, but without SADTU, there is no collective agreement, because you need 50% of the employer and 50% of SADTU, where a 2/3 majority in there. So without us, there will be no collective agreement. But also, some of the problems that we are encountering now is these deductions that President like to talk about, unlawful deductions. To me, is violating the rights of the teachers. They're professional. And then you have an employer that is really not respecting the data or personal data of the teachers and giving it to any other person to deduct that. That to me It's also violence against, because it's violating their privacy. It's violating their rights to be protected in terms of that particular data. And then there's unlawful. And again, SADTU has made a calling, and the government, the department has said that members or teachers who are experiencing that particular violation of their rights in terms of people docking their salaries and deducting from them unlawfully, they need to ensure that they submit that information to our SADTU'S, and then we coordinate that and bring that to the national office so that we can bring there. Again, is SADTU. This is another victory of SADTU as we celebrate. Because SADTU is the one that have said this thing must stop, and then the government has finally agreed that this thing must stop at the end of the day. You know, changing the condition of employment of the TVET through the Circular 10 of 2025 by the Department of Higher Education and Training. We raised that, and we are at the verge of declaring a dispute, and then they then said, look, we are going to withdraw this particular thing. They wouldn't do that, but they do that because SADTU, as we continue to be saying, what are we doing for our teachers as we celebrate? These are some of the things that we are doing to then say, don't violate the rights of our teachers, because we are there as the voice, we are there as the force, and therefore we have to make sure that they are represented. So problems in teaching are so many, and therefore we continue to be addressing those particular things as we celebrate. We don't forget that we cannot celebrate and then not address those particular issues that must make this profession what it's supposed to be, and that is what we are doing. So for me is that there are victories that SADTU is scoring, and SADTU is the largest union in our country, and we must continue to be supporting SADTU.
Just to add, yes, from the PPN budget workshop that was convened by the ELRC, that issue of fraudulent deductions has been addressed in a way that Treasury attended that meeting. They gave us an email and contact numbers that the union can use. So the union structures, they don't need to wait for a long time in bringing together information. It can be dealt with at the level of the regions. I will give the numbers and email to Comrade Paul so that our leaders who want to quickly interact with Treasury, they are able to do that. We are told by Treasury that that violation is going to lead to those companies like your Hollard, Lifewise, and sometimes called family insurance. Because what they do is that they were stopped through affidavits and so on, but they come back. The deduction code is the same, but they change the name into family insurance. So Treasury is willing to assist the union to make sure that those people are urged to refund immediately. But the likelihood is that they would no longer be allowed to make deductions through PESA. Now, on violence in schools, coming from the Central Executive Committee of Pope Crew, they are ready to collaborate with SADTU to make sure that we minimize the level of violence at schools. But what we can also urge is to make sure that psychosocial support is given to teachers, so that as we deal with this, we also take care of the mental impact that some of these things have on teachers in general.
These companies will be blacklisted. And they have to be blacklisted because they are violating our teachers. Teachers have got to be treated with respect and with dignity. And we cannot just allow anybody to play with our teachers.
Can I go back on the issue of the grade R qualification? Yes, we are very happy that the union has worked so hard to ensure that the grade R practitioners are assisted to upgrade their qualification. What is the current qualification that is being recognized? Because we've had incidents in the Northwest, they were told that one needs to have a degree, and what is the current qualification that should be recognized?
Yeah. The DHET is recognizing a 4-year degree. Okay, that's why they are recognized. But those who had qualification lower than that, it's also recognized as a qualification. It's only that it will be regarded as an underqualification. Hence, this collective agreement is addressing that particular need to upgrade them at the expense of the government. Because you cannot say, like what Northwest was doing was really unlawful. And we had to making sure that we intervene to ensure that we protect those particular teachers who had got diplomas and some have got 3-year degrees and so forth, to then say you cannot take them out, because at that time they were employed. That was a recognized qualification. So a 4-year degree can't be retrospective. Basically, we've got to making sure that protect the post of these particular teachers and then upgrade them. And that's the victory that we have now, to then say all those who are working and who are regarded as underqualified with a diploma and so forth, because when you assess in terms of the DBE, they are qualified. It's only the Department of Higher Education that says they are underqualified, but they are qualified people. So the issue is that qualification is no longer there. The 3-year qualification or the diploma qualification. The only qualification available with the Higher Education Institute is this 4-year degree. So everybody has got to graduate to that. I must emphasize one thing. Sometimes departments are making a big mistake. These teachers or practitioners are for grade R. And therefore sometimes they make a mistake of wanting to treat them like as if they are foundation phase teachers. They are not foundation phase teachers because they are not confronted with the same issues of education. They are dealing with health. They're dealing with social issues. They're dealing with many, many other issues. And therefore, for them to be treated like casuals, treated like your modern slaves and so forth, it is unacceptable, and SADTU is not going to upset that. But this collective agreement also is now bringing the formalization of that, because they will be earning the same salary as a teacher, and also qualifying for the same benefits that the teachers are qualifying them, because now they have standardized the qualification that is required and so forth. So we had to fight to protect them.
Oh, thanks, Comrade Nomusa. Greetings, leadership and comrades and colleagues on the platform. Appreciating the role played by UN and its agencies. GS, as we commemorate the 1996 ILO UNESCO recommendation concerning the status of teachers, which document touches on some of the issues that you just raised, showing that these are international issues in terms of employment of teachers and what is expected around qualifications and so on. Can GS, he has touched on some of them. Can you briefly expand on these recommendations as indicated in the status of teachers?
Yeah. No, thanks very much, Brother Paul. Very, very important, because teaching is a profession, and the UNESCO and ILO take this particular profession very, very seriously. Let me start with what we did 2 years ago, where we had a high-level panel where our minister, Angie Motshekga, was part of that. Where we played a very, very critical role as Education Internationalists and as SADTU, where we were saying we have got the 1966 recommendation on the status of the teachers, but also we have the 1997 recommendation on the status of the teachers in higher education and so forth. But we were saying the teaching profession is not attracting young people. It is not a first resort qualification or occupation for the young people, and therefore how can we make it attractive? That was the question that we needed to answer. In other words, how can we improve on the 1966 recommendation and the 1997 recommendation, confronted with these changes that are there, including technology? In other words, the digitalization of education learning through artificial intelligence. How do we ensure that we improve them? Hence, the high-level panel brought about 59 recommendations, which were very clear, and so that if you want to improve and make sure that teachers are respected, and then they work in an environment, first and foremost is that make sure that teaching is funded, equitably and fairly so that all teachers have qualification. You are raising the bar in terms of the standard and so forth. That was one. So you are improving on the 1966 and the 1997 now with the 59 recommendation. That needs to be worked again through UNESCO and ILO and Education International. It says that the teaching profession itself has got to be treated with respect, but to do so, it is that you need to ensure that you don't have overcrowding in the classes, making sure that enough teachers are there. And then that's where the 44 million teachers that are in a shortage, which almost about 15 million is in the sub-Saharan in Africa, needed to be addressed. It's to really to ensure that you can't be talking about respect this profession, fund the profession, but you don't respect the norms that are there in terms of teacher-people ratio. You need to ensure that that teacher-people ratio is respected. And it then talked about the safety of the teachers, that teachers deserve to work in an environment that is safe, so that it creates that particular sanctuary for the students and the teachers to work in an environment that their dignity and their safety is respected and protected. So these are some of the important things that we have to work on now. The process is to ensure that how do you bring in the 59 recommendation, and then so that they then can form part of the ILO and UNESCO recommendation like it happened before. We were very ambitious. We wanted a convention, not a recommendation. However, I must say that we are satisfied with the outcome of the high-level panel, despite the fact that we thought that because recommendation sometimes is not it's not compulsory to implement a convention. Once the country has ratified that convention, they have got to do that. But when it comes to education, we are happy that this is the head of states in the UN General Assembly, that they themselves adopted it in terms of funding education, in terms of making sure that it's only qualified teachers who are employed, and so forth. So we are happy about that. So yes, the UN as a multilateral institution, we need to work together. And then what are we saying as SADTU, and what are we saying as Education International on these particular issues, is that we must work with our governments to ensure that the high-level panel, one, there must be a commission at the national level that monitor the implementation of those particular recommendations, because they are very critical recommendations. They're very, very important. Issues of collective bargaining, issues of creating a dialogue, issues of collaboration of teachers. In other words, how do you create it as an institutionalized collaboration? You have got to ensure that whether it's Wednesday or Tuesday, teachers have got time to plan together. They have time to debrief together and so forth. Okay? If it's the head of departments that are working, they have got to do that. So it can't be haphazard. It can't be an artwork. That is what the recommendation demands, is that it's a collaborative, it's collegial, and therefore you need to have that particular time recognized and so forth, that you, on this particular day, this is what you are dealing with, so that you are then able to take into account the feedback and the assessment of the student into account when you are dealing with this particular issue. So it then, to us, means that you have got to have education support personnel, which is also supporting the teachers, because without them, the teachers are going to go back and deal with administration, which is something that is really taking away from our children. So I don't know if I have answered you, but that is how we have to work. That National Commission also says dialogue must flourish. You can't do policies alone. You have got to do that policies on curriculum or any other policy with the teachers. You must treat them as designers, not as only implementers. You must make sure that they participate as architects of that and not bring them at the end. The same way when you're going to introduce artificial intelligence in education to assist as a learning tool or as a support and so forth, don't involve the teachers at the end as implementers. You need to involve the teachers at the beginning, at the design stage, at the conceptualization stage, so that throughout the process they are part of that through their trade union representative, so that they own the process of digitalization in their classrooms. And so that is what these recommendations are all about. But fundamentally, it's about working condition. It's very clear that 1966 conditions are very clear. They work together with Convention 87 in terms of freedom of association.
Yeah, just a follow-up. That's sufficient, yes. We also had something on the historic Santiago consensus. but you've touched on some of the issues. But what's really inspiring is the message that comes from that consensus, where the leader said, let it be said that in Santiago, we chose courage over comfort, justice over silence, and education over excuses. That's what we see in Palestine. We see silence from the world. So that's very encouraging that this summarizes the message coming out of that particular consensus. Now, just a follow-up, not a follow-up, comrades. This is for you leaders. As SADTU, what is your message to teachers of our country during this month of October? As SADTU, President and GSU, from your heartfelt message, what are you saying to teachers during this month?
Yeah, just before that, you said in Palestine, there is silence from the world. Not the whole of the world is silent as such. You are aware that Mandela and others were stopped en route to Israel to try and give help. And South Africa as a country has been in the forefront through the ICJ and other mechanisms to try and put pressure on Israel to stop the genocide in Palestine. So the stopping of flotilla by Israel encourages other countries throughout the world. From the General Assembly of the UN recently, other countries such as Canada and so on came in to say they recognize the two-state solution of Palestine and Israel coexisting side by side. So it's not like the world is that silent, but it's not enough. The more other countries come in, the better. A message that we could have to the teachers of our country is to remind them that teaching, it's like a candle. You shed light to others, but in the process you consume yourself. So let them continue to do the good job. Despite the challenges that are there, they are not insurmountable. They can be overcome, but we can teach and fight at the same time. So our country needs requisite skills to boost the economy. So we must continue to work very hard to make sure that not only do we have patriotic learners that come from our classrooms, but we have learners that are ready to create work than to wait in the queues of joblessness to say we're not getting jobs. Low-hanging fruits would be, for instance, learners being encouraged to do agricultural science so that as we take over the land, we have the required skills to go and work on the land. Thanks.
Isn't it, in addition to Paul and Nomusa on Israel, is the United States that silence everybody. Is the veto power they have at the level of the Security Council when all countries would be voting and say we want the state of Palestine to be recognized. It must be a state. It must have its own army. It must have its own independent economy, its own government, and not just an authority that is there. Okay? So that is the reality of the fact that the Trump administration has created a problem. Of course, there are signs that says there might be peace because Egypt is coordinating and facilitating the discussion between Hamas and Israel, but also the broader Palestinian question in order to ensure that there is peace in there. So we must be very clear in education is that the message to our members is when we were oppressed in apartheid, Palestine and many other countries, they came out very clear to condemn the apartheid state. So it's a question of solidarity. The other solidarity that we see, which Israel is punishing solidarity, is to have the Summit flotilla being intercepted. and abducting the people, torment them, put them and show them to the world how powerful they can be. Let us be very clear. The flotilla was not carrying any arms. It was carrying medicine. It was carrying hope. It was carrying food for those who are ravished, for those that are degraded and not treated as human beings, and so forth. So we must not remember the flotilla for its interception. We must remember it for its intention. Yes. What was the intention? And I want to say we will continue to sail, because we will continue to stand in solidarity with those that are suppressed, oppressed, and degraded, and ravished, because we believe in peace. We choose peace all the time. We choose humanity all the time. Our message as SADTU, as the president has indicated, is that please support our organization. It is your organization, all our members. Without SADTU, there's nothing that can happen. Okay? Our organization stand firm in defense of your rights, in defense of better working conditions, and for the improvement of their well-being. So we'll continue to stand with our teachers, and we continue to be saying, let's build our country. Let's love our country. As the Freedom Charter says, that we must make our children to love our people, make our children to love our country. And therefore, this message of October is a message of hope, is a message of us standing together, united, to ensure that we never go back to apartheid. In other words, I must be very clear, we must never go back to a day where we shall be governed by the Democratic Alliance and its cockroaches.
Okay, we are.
I would have chosen its surrogates than cockroaches, because how oftentimes the use of the word cockroach is misinterpreted as hate speech and so on, like what happened in other parts of the world.
Parts of the world.
Yes.
Yes.
We are online, and our members are watching us. We recognize you, Kamogelo Nolankosi. We recognize you, Dudu Kumede. We recognize you, Lucky Motlapema. We recognize you, Mpasifako. And Lucky is saying the union is dealing with rural allowance matter at a snail's pace. He's appealing to the union to prioritize this matter with the employer.
Yeah, we agree with Lucky to ensure that it's not only the rural allowance, is that we need to improve the rural education, making sure that those that are teaching in far-flung areas are taken care of. We must not have rural teachers, but we must have the teachers that teach in the rural areas. And the conditions that we need to create together with the employer are such that we are then able to retain qualified teachers in the rural areas. So we agree that we need to ensure that there are incentives for people to go and teach in far-flung areas that require that. It's not only our students in the rural areas need also to be taken care, because social capital is not there. Parents are migrating, they go to work in Johannesburg, they go to work in Rustenburg, and they leave our children, and therefore we need to making sure that we have enough assistant teachers that are there in the schools to ensure that these particular learners are able to complete their homeworks before they even go home. And remedial is provided for them, because nobody is there at home to help them. So we agree with you, Lucky. We have got to work and accelerate the process of really reintroducing more incentives for those particular areas that the president has already indicated. Agriculture is very critical. There must be an incentive for our teachers to really introduce agriculture and have land, and the schools must expand and work with the communities in a way that we can mobilize those local economies to ensure that indeed we realize our dream of getting our land back. So, Lucky, we agree with you.
Okay.
No, can I come in?
Yes.
While we agree with Lucky, but we need to remind the listeners out there that rural allowance was introduced by the Department of Basic Education during the era of Naledi Pandor unilaterally. And when it came in, it was so divisive because you would know that KZN, Mpumalanga, Limpopo, Northwest are generally rural. You'd find that a school next to schools next to each other, some were receiving and some were not receiving. And when it created problems, for instance, in Limpopo, I remember, with lawyers taking the department to court to make sure that, how do you explain that a school just next door, divided by a fence, you are getting rural allowance, you are not getting it. So the issue of numbers that of people who were supposed to get was limiting in itself. And the department has since withdrawn rural allowance. We need to look at what other incentives can we have, and we need to have a collective agreement that would be able to regulate how those incentives are going to be dispersed. Unlike the unilateral decision that was taken by the Department of Basic Education to implement rural allowance, now they have also taken another unilateral decision of withdrawing the rural allowance itself. I know in some instances there were still supposed to be payments that were supposed to be done, but it's not like we're dragging our feet. When you win something in court, they find a way of making an appeal. And when an appeal is made, it means you must wait until the matter is heard at court.
Okay, and then we go to Comrade Fako. Mpasi Fako acknowledges that we are having this show today. He says it's very good, but he proposes that we should have this program at ground level in different branches. He says this program gives so much information as newly appointed leaders, gain a lot from it, and it allows members to engage more and explore more ways to accelerate or to celebrate educators.
Yeah.
No. You can't have online TV going on the ground as such. We're just adding to what is already there. This is how we operate. We have sites which are schools. And at those schools, on a regular basis, there must be meetings about challenges that educators are experiencing. Other than that, we have site steward councils. Site steward councils should be convened at least once every 3 months in line with our constitution, which means the challenges that are there, for instance, in a circuit, then or in a branch, then before the site steward council is convened, the secretary and the chairperson of the branch executive committee will issue out a notice, and that notice must include the challenges that have to be discussed at the level of the sites, which are schools. And when site steward councils meet, those site stewards must be coming to the site steward councils with the challenges that have to be looked at broadly by the branch itself. But branches must also convene mass meetings at least once every 3 months, once per quarter. Those are our structures that must take care of the missing information, the gaps that the online TV is trying to provide. And even the celebrations could be done in that fashion. We must have 4 branch mass meetings per annum and 4 site steward councils per annum. That is where you have an opportunity to engage and deal with local matters.
Yeah. Leadership, from some quarters, they are saying the genesis of SADTU was more political than about education transformation. What is our response to these negative statements?
Well, do you regard that as being negative? I think it's opinion. People have got their opinion. It is our responsibility and a duty to educate so that people understand the genesis of an organization like SADTU. Okay? We were fighting a terrible system in the country that is apartheid, which was apartheid colonialism and so forth, and which did not allow unions in education or in the public sector, including in the private sector. So it's a long thing. It's a struggle. And in the struggle, you've got to ensure that when you wage that particular struggle, you'll have tactics and strategies. And one of the tactics is that particular battles had to be chosen, to be fought. So because SADTU was founded on the basis of the African National Congress and the SACP and COSATU, or even before COSATU, SACTU, was to, one, have a non-racial organization in a country, non-sexist, and a progressive organization. Clearly, it is that we have adopted a socialist unionism. Okay, a social unionism means that you cannot define yourself as SADTU and say we're only going to be fighting for 10% when the struggle is being waged, and then and your communities that you are saving are not enjoying the services and the benefits that they are supposed to be enjoying. The very same teachers can't vote for the party that they want to vote for, and then you say, oh no, our duty will be 10%, 1%. No, a social program, a social strategy, it is that we carry the aspirations of the people. We are part of the struggle, and therefore we then walk on two legs. We say we can fight and teach at the same time. So if you go back, you look at the five the conducts that are there, they are all on professionalism. So we're very clear that whilst we have this leg that says fight as a trade unionism, we also have a leg that says you've got to transform education. You've got to ensure that the education, the profession is regarded as a profession. Apartheid deprofessionalize it. If you have others 4-year degrees or 4-year qualification, and you have others with 1 year, what do you expect? You expect them to continuously produce, cheap labor for corporates that are funding the same system that you are fighting. And therefore, you needed to change that. If you had continued to have 14 departments of education that have got different things in a country that you have got one economy and so forth, and say, no, we will continue to be fighting for 1% and so forth, and then we don't take a political. Education is political, by the way.
It's not neutral.
It's not neutral, and it's not going to be neutral. So it's political. So you've got to take a political stance, and then we do so. So I can say it's an opinion. And we must allow people to continue to opine on whatever they want to opine. It's our duty to educate our members. We are not a craft organization. We are a social trade union that is fighting for students, fighting for the communities, and fighting for our teachers and so forth. So we have got to making sure that everyone benefits, and we cannot compromise our educators, because remember, we've said, it's a common inheritance. It is that when you improve the qualification, when you improve the condition of work for the teachers, who are you looking at? You're looking at the students. When they are taught by a highly qualified person, a highly paid person, with benefits, and an environment in the school is so conducive because SADTU is there to fight for those particular things. Who is the beneficiary? The beneficiary is a learner. The beneficiary is the community. The beneficiary is the political landscape of our country, because we'll have stability. We'll have people who are self-critical, who are working for our country, and who are building our economy. So education is a game changer, and you cannot adopt a narrow view around education. So, but I always say, people have got their own opinions, allow them to have their opinions, but I'm always saying to members of SADTU, listen to SADTU, read documents of SADTU, go back to your constitution, you'll find professional conduct or code of conduct will talk about how you relate with your own members as leaders. How do you relate with the authority of the level of the school? How do you relate with the education system itself, and how do you relate with the student and so forth? If we were not really prioritizing professionalism. Why is it that we're the only union in education that signed that collective agreement that was protecting the children? Why are we the only union that did that? We did that because we understood our role as that of education, and that we educate the community, we built our nation, we built our community. So we understood that is that. So it's just an opinion, but we are clear that our members are very clear. They understand where SADTU stands, what SADTU is, and what SADTU's future is all about. I will continue to be saying they must love their organization. They must defend their organization. The first thing is that when they hear those people who say, okay, fine, is your opinion. My SADTU is a SADTU that stands for me. My SADTU is a SADTU that has what we call, I'm a school fan. What do one with I'm a school fan is to say, the community must mobilize around education. The community must protect that, but they can't do that if we don't work with them. Education belongs to the people of our country. So I'm a school fan. We love our schools. We love our people. We love our education personnel. We love everybody.
What said
just-
GS, President?
Just in addition, we are from the 7th of October, which is the International Day of Decent Work. And with the high levels of joblessness in our country, through COSATU, we went all out to say our economy has to be improved so that the level of joblessness can be reduced and so on. So GS has said a mouthful. We are not neutral. But equally, we are not workerists, just looking at the conditions of service for our members, but we're looking at the environments where we come from. Before we are teachers, we're members of the community, and that is why we bring all these things together to make sure that if our communities are living in harmony together, it means our teachers will also find themselves in conducive environments.
We have a question here or an observation from one listener or viewer, Ngobi, saying, since we are, SADTU is 35 years old, what kind of leadership do we need that will take the organization forward? After we've had this 35 years, what kind of a leader do you think should take the union forward?
Okay.
But perhaps we can answer that after this, because in this program we are also going to be, as we've started looking into the history of SADTU. So perhaps we will answer after we have spoken about, because we said in this show we are also going to be paying tribute to the leaders who were there at the beginning of this union. So just keep your ear.
We
on
can
the
use
ground.
1
Yes.
second of answering that.
Yes.
Yeah, we just want to also combine it with this question that leadership, as we look back to this 35-year journey of this giant union, what have been the highlights and the low points? What anchors SADTU? Then leadership can also bring in the question or the input from Comrade Mdladlana.
I want to deal with
Respond.
that, Comrade of Mdladlana. Comrade
You're
Mdladlana, quickly,
welcome.
and then the
You're
President will
welcome.
come in terms of the highlights. As of what I'm saying, it's a very straightforward kind of a thing, leadership. Leadership is about vision. Okay? You need a visionary leadership in the era of technology, in the era of so much information, so much misinformation, so much fake information in the system. And people using your TikTok, using everything to paint this one like this, paint that. We know where we come from. Where SADTU will be accused of that and so forth with fake information. So in that particular situation, what type of a leadership do you need? Do you want to have? It's a leadership that put the member first. It's a leadership that says we have a pillar. A pillar of our vision is that servicing members. That is what. So a leader must live up to that particular thing to ensure that when you get the information, the first thing you know is that this information does not belong to me as a site steward. It belongs to the teachers, and therefore share that particular information immediately so that they are then informed, they are then empowered, so that they don't take decisions out of this misinformation and fake news that they receive. That is the type of a leader that we need. That would then say, number one is my member. Okay, and that member needs my service. Two, it is that I must be present for my members. When my members have grievances at the level of the site, I must be there, present, listening to them, and making sure that I guide them, I represent them, and serve them, and so forth. That is the leader that we need. In other words, we want a leader that is agile, a leader that is responsive, a leader that does not put his or her own interests first, but putting the interest of the organization and that of its members first. That is the type of a leader that we need. Let's not talk about ageism and say, this is my time, that was their time. Let's forget about that, because it is just diverting. The issues are so many. The problems are so many. We need to attend to the problems. And then the leaders that read, empower themselves, they are abreast with changes and so forth, they will be able to lead. They will be able to provide that, space for our members to do that. Listen first before you jump. That's a fundamental, characteristics of a leader. Listen to your members. What are they saying? Are you doing what they are saying to you? So for me, then the president can talk about the highlights of the 35 years or where we come from.
Well, encapsulating it with that very question, the leaders we need are like the leaders we had before. We need selfless leaders, leaders that would serve our members and not themselves. I always speak about OSD as one of the best agreements that we ever got. But the most disappointing or the low points that one can think of recently is teachers who have sexual relationship with learners. On a regular basis at South African Council for Educators, there are quite a number of educators that are being struck off from the role. Can you imagine how much money your parents spend for you to go and spend 4 years at a university? You come back, you are supposed to start teaching, then you misbehave, you have sexual relationship with learners as if you don't have your equals to can talk to. Some of them you were together at varsity. Now you look at children that are hoping for the future. You're looking at them as something else, and then you start engaging with them sexually. That's not something to write home about. The issue of corporal punishment, for instance. But the worst one is this one, of selling of posts. And thanks to the ELRC for coming together with us to say we need to go out and identify those people who in the name, there are people who are flocking into the organization, into organizations at times for self-aggrandizement, instead of going into those positions to serve the people they purport to be leading. So from where I'm seated, I can't remember, GS, wherein we noted, believed, and therefore resolved that posts must be sold.
No.
There are comrades who come in and then they abuse the system. And the National Executive Committee was clear on this matter that we need to make sure that any loopholes that exist, especially with recruitments and so on and so on, wherein they are being abused, we must put a stop to that, including, if possible, to take the powers of the observers from the branches to make sure that the regions must really coordinate some such activities, even if it means not in their own regions, because they are human beings. They must not be tempted to put their hands in the cookie jar. That's just what will destroy the good work that we have done over the years. But otherwise, membership service and membership service and membership service is what we pride ourselves with. From 30,000 members when we started in 1990 to well over 270,000 members is not a child's play. Let's continue to work together and make sure that information is not kept by leaders for themselves. It's information that must go down, and members must feel, really being taken care of and being respected in terms of their conditions of service and all that goes with it.
Yeah.
Maybe addition as one of the highlights is teacher development. It's continuous improvement of our professional standards and so forth is something that we do every time. Training by Curtis Nkondo, one of the founding leader of SADTU. You're going to be paying tributes to him as part of this next phase of your engagement with us and so forth. We have that and it's continuing. We are continuing to be training. We are busy every weekend and so forth, and we're calling upon our members to ensure that they participate in these particular programs, so in order to improve their competencies and their skills. But it's very, very important as a teacher. You've got to be abreast as a person, well informed and so forth. The other areas are collective bargaining. We have done a lot over this particular 35 years to an extent that on an annual basis, well, apart from your normal increases, you still have to qualify for 1.5%, and which improves your pension. It improves your base, that when the next increase in April comes, it is a different base altogether. So in each and every year, you have got two bases, okay, of improvement. One is on the 1st of April, where you get a normal increase and so forth. Then you get another change in July, 3 months along the line, which then is to keep the salaries of our teachers to be in line with the inflation, so that it is not eroded. We're not saying it's enough, but we are saying that is the work that we have done, and we are, and this is a permanent feature around this particular matter and so forth. Recognition of qualification that we spoke before. It's general. It is that we needed to make sure that when people continue to recognize, improve their qualification, they are recognized as a way of, encouraging them to improve their well-being, improve their qualification and their competencies. These are collective, but these are a condition of work that we have created,
including just equal pay for equal work.
Yes,
women being paid.
Women, in terms of maternity leave and now paternity leave, family leave, and all those particular things. They did not just fall from heaven as manna. They things that we struggled for. We fought together with our members, and we always pride ourselves of a membership of SADTU that loves its organization, that loves the colors of our organization, and then they wear these colors with pride on the first Friday of the month, when we say we will be on we will have our Friday. We will be on duty. We'll be ready. We'll be professional. We will not have what our president has said, having a relationship with our students and so on. I regard that as being counter-revolutionary, as barbaric, because you are exploiting the poor. You are exploiting the weak, because a learner are looking upon you for guidance, for parenthood for that matter. And what do? You exploit. And exploitation is counter-revolutionary. It's the same as an exploitation by capitalism. So you are a parasite. Okay? You are a parasite. And therefore, I don't regard you as a comrade of SADTU. A person who sells post is barbaric. It's corrupt to the core, because that is corruption. So you can't be saying, I'm waiting to see if that minister is corrupt, that side. And you are corrupt when you are selling a post, because you are then exploiting that particular person who is not even having an employment to then say, I'm going to sell you this particular employment. We must make a warning that our leaders and our members must make sure that they expose these people who are employing foreigners and exploiting them, and making sure that because they are foreigners, they don't have a voice. And then they are paying on a monthly basis to these SGBs and principals and so forth. When the time comes for the investigation and inquiry by the NEC, by the ELRC, we're calling upon all our members, stand firm, do what you are supposed to do, submit evidence, make sure that we are able to deal with these counter-revolutionaries and then protect our profession and so forth. So the highlights are many. There are so many, Brother Paul, Brother Nomusa, there are so many, but we are not saying we're 100% happy, because in a struggle, it is that in a capitalist society, you've got to continue to struggle to improve the well-being of your members, the well-being of our communities. Otherwise, it will be a continuous struggle. It's now open, it's now closed, so that's how it is.
During the Teachers Month leadership, as we celebrate these giants, our founding leaders who led with distinction since the inception of this SADTU, they contributed immensely, shaping the not only SADTU, but also they've been in the South African Parliament, and even in the Education Department they've led with distinction. We have our late founding president, Comrade Catchup Mdladlana, the founding vice president, the late Comrade Curtis Nkondo, and the founding general secretary, the late Comrade Randall van der Heever. These are not the only leaders we have. Many we can't mention by name, but there are many of these giants. What distinguished these leaders? President has touched on some of the principles. What really distinguished these comrades?
They were servants of the people. They were professional in what they were doing. They understood that SADTU'S mandate is that of the transformation of our education system, and they went in there to engage the government, engage everybody, want to make sure that the laws the country is going to be creating for education and employment are the laws that respond to humanity, human rights, the laws that respect trade unionism. So they fought for that. So the promulgation of the Labor Relations Act, we must also say, Mdladlana played a role. Randall van den Heever played a very critical role. Duncan Handel, and so forth, as the founders, Pubi Naika, the late Pubi Naika, they played a very pivotal role around that. So what distinguished them, it is that they understood that everything is about time. They knew that during their time, they had this particular mission to accomplish. And the mission was to ensure that create a fertile ground for laws to be promulgated that would address that which we were fighting about: recognition of union, recognition of the freedom of association. So it was that epoch which then gave them that particular mission to approve that. So they understood that. So things change. And as they change, each and every leader that come is confronted with a new reality. At their time, these were the realities that were confronting them. The president spoke about how do we need to ensure that equal pay for same work or equal work and so forth. How do you ensure that you don't exploit women in the environment where women were not permanently employed, women were forced to marry so that they can maintain permanent employment and so forth. That was that particular period where they were to be confronted with that. So that is what distinguished them. But critical is that these were highly professional leaders. These were the people that would not compromise the students. They stood firm, they understood the code of conduct of SADTU, and they lived up to the prescripts of the code of conduct of SADTU. We don't have skeleton that we are hearing. For example, we must pride ourselves of Randall, pride ourselves of Mdladlana. Mdladlana was a minister of labor. He drove himself. He never walked around with securities. You'll meet him in a mall pushing his trolley and so forth. So he never put himself there and say, I'm an elitist. He remained grounded with the people. Randall remained grounded with the people, Pubi, and so forth. We pay tribute to them today because they gave us this particular giant organization, and it's our responsibility that we keep it, we build it, we improve it, and make sure that it remains focused to implement our Vision 2030.
Humble and honest were those leaders that you have just mentioned. Humble to the core, honest. They refused to play to the gallery. Today, some of our leaders that are emerging, they want to tell people what they want to hear. And as such, plunging the organization into the quagmire. You must be honest, tell the truth, even it hurts, to say this is possible, this is not possible, so that you are not accused of lying to members. Because if you want to assume positions of responsibility and you have a mentality of it's our time to eat, you're going to end up doing wrong things and the organization suffers. They were not like that. Selfless, we have said.
These founding leaders, they went on to serve as ministers, to serve in the departments, in high positions within the Department of Education and so forth. And Comrade Mdladlana and others, not only him, other founding members went on to become ambassadors. Mdladlana is one of them. I think another one, Mkolisi, is also another. And yeah, there are several who became ambassadors. What does this say about SADTU? You know, what should we take out of this about our union producing such leaders?
It tells you that SADTU is a university in itself. It inculcates that spirit of leadership. The late David Mabuza was himself a teacher. The deputy president, he was there at the formation of SADTU from NUSA, Me and Jim Serra, Comrade Tulas Nqesi, and many others. They were there, they have served. And we pride ourselves with them having carried the flag of SADTU high. There are less challenges that we encounter to say, hey, here is a former SADTU leader doing wrong things. We haven't experienced that, and we're happy about that because it means they have learned good working ethics from SADTU, and they continue to do that out there.
Look, as an addition, just quickly, it is that when you have a vision, and then that will then identify leadership. So our Congress was not about going to Congress and then saying this is our time because of ageism and so forth. No, it was about resolutions. It was about policies that had to be adopted. And then you elect a leadership that would live up to the expectation of the organization. And that is what we can say about SADTU. We have said that that's why we adopted a social aspect of a trade unionism. Because of that, they understood that they are not only leading SADTU, they are leading the communities. And the communities identified them to be ambassadors and identified them as DGs, head of department, and many others, because now they have got to serve a broader, society, and not only limited to only serving in SADTU. And they did not take themselves there. They were identified, whether they were young, like Mkolisi Nkosi, who was the youngest amongst them. They identified him on the basis of commitment, on the basis of competencies that were there. So it was meritorious. It was not people are throwing there and all. No, it was meritorious because they were well schooled in terms of their conduct, but also in terms of the vision that they had to lead their country. And we pride ourselves of such leaders because they never embarrassed us.
I hope our members are really taking notes from that. Let me give a shout out to others who are still watching. Tamane LM, Nomsankosi, Comrade MJ Mumalo, Comrade Lindiwe Khumalo, our Vice President Fasiha Solomon, Stan Motio, George Ngomane, Nkosi Kokolose, Ndode Mbinzama, Dorcas Nkobodi. Yes, we are happy that you are still with us. You are still watching the program. Please stay put. Comrade Paul.
Leadership, before we
George
close.
Ngoman was one of my secretaries in my branch, by the way.
Oh.
Fasiha is our vice president for education.
Yes.
We,
And then Jane Ngumalo is our deputy
deputy
secretary in KwaZulu-Natal.
in KwaZulu-Natal, so we really appreciate that.
Leadership, any other message that you want to take out to members before we close?
I thought this program was still going to be long. We still have a lot of the things we wanted to say to our members. No, the message, for me, I'm very selfish, okay, as the General Secretary. You would understand that, okay? For me, it is that we need recruitment. So for me, is that a member is an organizer. Each member recruits. And therefore, I'm calling upon them to then say, come end of October, please bring us 10,000 members. 10,000 members is what we need now from our members as part of celebrating our 35th anniversary. I'm just giving you a very small number. I would have said 30,000. My president is going to say to me, why 10,000? Because I told you we need 30,000. And really, it is because of we are now, today is the 9th, and I'm just counting, just the other 20,000 will come as a result of that. So my message is, each member an organizer. Each member a recruiter. So please make sure that you collect those forms that are there in the school as a site steward. Make sure that you fill that cancellation form. Send it directly to us at national level immediately. And through the email that is there, you will be surprised. Come month end, you will see that all the members that you have sent to us are captured, and they are now on a stop order facility. They're enjoying their benefits and so forth, all of them. So give me the tender. I'm selfish as a general secretary. That's what I'm going to be saying. That's my message. My next message is, please, the first thing that you do, defend SADTU. Defend SADTU. Don't allow people to lie to you and say, SADTU is doing this, SADTU is doing that, and then you leave the organization, you join other organizations. When you go and join others out there and so forth, that cannot make a difference at the level of the chamber, because there's going to be no agreement coming out of the chamber without SADTU. So why are you leaving an organization where you can have an influence and be able to instruct that leadership of SADTU to then say, this is what we want, like they're talking about incentives and so forth. It's SADTU that is going to ensure that those particular incentives are there. Because if we don't put our pen down, there's no collective agreement. It can't be recognized because it's not going to be there. So that is my message. And continue, honestly speaking, let's educate our nation. Let's build a peaceful nation. Let's continue to stand in solidarity with the people of Palestine. Let's stand in solidarity with the teachers of Gaza because they are under siege. But I am saying we will sail again because we choose peace.
Well, from my side, on the eve of the grade 12 exams, is to say continue to make us proud. Even today at the National Teachers Awards, many of our teachers scooped a lot of victories there. We appreciate you. Continue to love your organization. As GS is saying, ours is to continue to serve you, and we are happy that you are fully behind SADTU no matter what. Thank you very much.
Any from the platform? Okay. We end this show on that positive note. Let us thank you, President and GS, for being our guests in this show. We thank all the viewers who have all tuned in and contributed to the show. Until next time, goodbye.
Let's awaken the masses and disrupt the status quo. We are the champions of change, mobilizing the consciousness and uniting revolutionary professionals in strengthening foundational learning and functional skills to advance inclusive and sustainable economic growth in pursuance of a socialist society, leaving no one behind. Be part of history. Together, we'll shape a world where education isn't just a privilege, it is a revolution. We can be the catalyst for change.